Good day, everyone. Thank you for having me and allowing me to share some of the experiences to give back to the community. Globe Telecom, commonly shortened as Globe, is a major provider of telecommunications services in the Philippines. The company operates the largest mobile network in the Philippines and one of the largest fixed line and broadband networks. As of 2021, Globe's total mobile subscriber base reached 86.8 million. Globe is growing and is now creating a value to our community through the Globe Group ecosystem. Globe's purpose is to see a Philippines where families' dreams come true, businesses flourish, and the nation is admired. In everything we do, we treat people right to do a globe of good. We have a number of companies within the ecosystem that have served the community well. The GCash as well as the Consulta MD have been able to help, especially during the pandemic. GCash in itself has been a unicorn in the startup world. Globe continues to support the 86 million telco customers, and we want to continue to provide digital solutions and services for them. Globe envisions having a sustainable end-to-end recommendation engine that leverages streaming analytics, churns out the next best action, and orchestrates it, thereby achieving business outcomes and superb user experience. This vision is enabled by an ecosystem of capabilities to process billions of real-time data points to navigate contextual flows to arrive at the next best action recommendations. The end-to-end recommendation engine has the flow of data ingestion and streaming events that goes through the filters based on profiles and lookups, then processed through the decision rules engine, and finally triggers the actions. As we have 86 million customers, streaming data is not an easy task. The volume makes other proprietary platforms have scalability challenges. With this, we saw an opportunity to create our very own streaming decision platform. We created an in-house customer-centric cloud-native platform. Our platform has three main components. Steps, which is streaming transaction events processing system. Choices, which is the central hub for optimal and insightful customer experience services. And last is UMT, which is a unified marketing tool. We created a platform that allows us to be with our customer every steps of the way and provides them with choices for them to have informed decisions towards a wonderful experience. We focused on the customers and their stories such that we created an event-driven platform. We applied the principle of open architecture that allows open source and proprietary software to work together in an ecosystem. By doing so, we created a platform that has these typical features. These are typical features that are required in processing complex event streams. Our platform, last I checked, is processing about 235 billion messages per day. These functional features may be typical, but it needs to support the massive streaming volume. These features would require the right tools for purpose. Aerospike is a key component that allows us to have reference lists with 80 million lookups. We're able to process a lot of message filtering through use of Aerospike lookups. If a subscriber is part of a campaign, or if we have already touched the customer for a campaign today, we're able to also do top up and get use cases through the aggregation feature. Those use cases where if you top up, say, 100 pesos in a week, then you get a freebie. We also do a lot of message enrichment as the data streams through the use of lookups. We're also able to utilize its built-in geospatial capabilities and avoid having to call third-party APIs in the process. The best part of supporting these functions is that We are scalable, we're portable, and highly performant. We are running around 2,000 microservices in our Kubernetes platform. We are processing around 1 million TPS, which we were not able to do in our previous platform. We were only able to do around 400,000 back then. Now we're able to go beyond 1 million transactions per second. And guess what? We're able to create real-time reports even with this massive processing. These microservices follow the open architecture. Globe's end-to-end recommendation engine requires an open architecture that leverages an event sourcing microservices architecture. The current architecture has met significant bottlenecks that prevent the company from achieving its business outcomes at desired speed and at scale. The open architecture describes an ecosystem where event sourcing microservices architecture is enabled by different technologies. It expanded, then replaced the previous architecture and created flexibility and independence to achieve the non-functional requirements or ELTs, availability, scalability, observability, and many other ELTs, while significantly reducing cost. Open architecture is a practical implementation of the fit-for-purpose principle. The open architecture consists of 6 key focus areas. These allowed microservices to be initially grouped into main interdependent responsibilities within the ecosystem. The focus areas were ingestion, streaming, event orchestration, real-time reporting and analytics, action resolvers and gateway, and last but not least, the data sinks, data lake, as well as the data mesh. Well, these focus areas were described in detail in our internal paper. We applied an event sourcing architecture that allows us to decouple our system and services. Using Kafka allows us to do streaming in a fluid state, and Aerospike serves as the key state store. Our retention in Kafka is kept at a minimum 24 hours. Thus, Aerospike plays a key significant role in the architecture. Zooming into technologies, this pretty much shows how we do processing. Simplistic view indicates how our 2,000 pods running the microservices and how Aerospike nodes serve our purpose well. As mentioned earlier, all these microservices processing volume, we also have real-time reports and push to our data lake and data mesh. You'd see Aerospike all over the place. These microservices are the ones that support us with about 50,000 connections on average at our current load, which is now more than 300 CRM campaigns and around 20 independent telco use cases. Digital transaction rewards is one of the first use cases that allowed us to solve direct data promo transactions from our digital channels, where we automated the integration of a legacy system and made hourly rewards points processing to the digital transaction of the customer. First, the specific digital transactions that are streaming into our on-prem Kafka are replicated to the cloud. We immediately detect the specific digital transactions using Aerospike lookup to enrich the streaming message, and we publish the valid rewarding events to our event broker, where another microservice will read all the transactions and prepare the legacy file format that the old system will be able to process on an hourly basis. Whenever the business would have new set of promos, we just update the Aerospike lookup set, and without downtime, we already process those new promos. The maintenance just typically takes about 5 minutes and we're done. This use case was developed in a 2-week sprint. The next use case is when we leverage on our data analytics and store the profiles that have had bad network experience. and have not availed any promos for more than 7 days. We push a promo invite via app and SMS upon a detected network activity. We process massive network probes from the network sources. We determine a subscriber event and check if a subscriber has an existing promo that expires in 24 hours or no active promo in our Aerospike promo cache. We check it against Aerospike lookup for business rules, and only then we publish an event to the event broker for the targeted invite. We then insert the ad in the app CMS and send an SMS to the subscriber as well. We were able to complete this in 3 weeks from idea to production. This campaign also had a good conversion rate. There are many other use cases running in production as of this moment. And in the past 2 years, we've learned a number of items throughout the implementation. First, Aerospike is truly a scalable database. We are supporting 6 nodes now upon optimizations. We are averaging about 50,000 connections with no problem. Previously, we had RDBMS, and we were always having problems at 5,000 maximum connections. We have also optimized our nodes and EC2s. That has resulted in higher throughput but lower cost. We executed this without downtime. As we have about 2,000 microservices in the wild, our performance has been amazing. Our performance is the same regardless if it's 80 million or 10 records. This has significantly reduced our risks and need for performance testing on the database side. We still do performance testing, don't get me wrong, but Aerospike is not an area of risk. The other thing that we love is time to leave, TTL. It's made a number of our use cases easier. However, you need to be careful as well. We've learned things that we need to consider, like ghosts. Never change the TTL to a lower number when it's coming from a higher number of TTL. Thus, it needs to be properly used. Another lesson is that our developers have had to adjust in use of this key value store, and thus required some mind shift from the typical RDBMS use. And that's typically a constant onboarding process for our new teams, new developers that come to the team to expand our capacity for development and delivery. And lastly, we have used our geospatial functions properly to ensure better performance, especially since the Philippines is mostly composed of many islands. We need not have to check every small scale of geography, especially within the waters. The next item is, we realize that Aerospike is not just there as a vendor. They are there as a partner. They are always there to help us with our challenges and willing to help us. We've had ideas come alive working with Aerospike. We even have a WhatsApp group chat on top of our regular ticket system. In the past 2 years, Aerospike has helped us establish a real-time decision streaming platform that allowed us to maximize the opportunities of our data and analytics, process all the massive data from our network sources, and really allow us to give the best experience for our customers. Thank you.
Noel, thank you very much for your very interesting and informative presentation. So we have got some questions for you. Let's take those one at a time. First question. So you covered in your presentation at a high level how and why you choose Aerospike for this particular product, this particular platform. And also using Aerospike for the last 2 years, what are the features and capabilities of Aerospike that you like most?
That's a good question. It's actually our CTIO then that
told me first about Aerospike. I remember doing my research and watching a bunch of Aerospike videos to see what differentiates it from the rest. The fact that it was architected from the ground up, focused on the hybrid memory architecture, I knew then that it was what we were looking for. So I got a community edition, set it up on my own server at home, and tried it out. Had my reference talks with some key contacts and made a decision to make it a part of our architecture. We were considering a number of other alternatives as well, including grids. Our old system was complex, streaming up processing software that was in memory. The challenge that we had then was when our server suddenly just reboots because of an issue, the memory is gone. We needed persistent data and at the same time have this tremendous speed to support our volume. We wanted something that would work with the same as 1 million records or even 100 million records. On that follow-up question, one of the main points of the decision is really scalability and stability. For over 2 years now, we have scaled the database by adding nodes, and we've replaced EC2s without having downtime. It's really very scalable, knock on wood. Second is speed. Even with only the indices in memory configuration, it's still really fast. You know that Aerospike, you can configure that with just the indices in memory and even the data in memory. And that's going to be ultra fast. So in our implementation, we decided to have bronze, platinum, and gold for us to be able to talk about how we configure that. Do we have like 100% in memory? Do we have 100% data on disk or 100% in memory and 100% index? And that's pretty awesome. Lastly, the geolocation capability of Aerospike allowed us to utilize it for those necessary situations where we do reverse geolog queries without having to call an external map API. There were a number of external map API vendors that were actually telling us that you can use this and that. But luckily, Aerospike already had that at speed.
Awesome. Thank you for that detailed answer. So somewhat related, let me ask you this. You referred to Aerospike on your last slide of the presentation as the part of your central nervous system. Could you please build on that? What exactly do you mean by saying that?
Well, we are a streaming decision platform. We process massive data as it streams. At the end of all this, we need to make decisions. Do we give a freebie? Do we give rewards? Do we give a reminder? The brain makes all the decisions. This nervous system works closely with our circulatory system, which is the data flowing throughout the body. The brain makes decisions based on our relationship with the customer, the heart. All these data are stored in the heart. And Aerospike is the one that we're using as a data store for that heart because of one, speed, scale, and stability.
Understood. Thank you. Next, give us a very concrete example of where Aerospike excelled in your deployments. I know you, in your talk, you mentioned about an AWS migration, maybe that one or something else, where you really think concrete example where Aerospike really excelled.
Aerospike doesn't keep me awake at night. I always sleep sound ever since we moved our streaming platform to our in-house streaming service that utilizes Aerospike. I know that data is there regardless of what happens. And as our load and use grow, we needed to cut some cost. Since we have empirical data, we decided to move from an R5 16x large instances to a more economical and yet performant i3EN. It's just amazing that we did that without downtime at our massive volume.
Got it. Then let me ask you this. A key theme of your presentation and Globe in general is your transformation from a communication service provider, CSP, to a digital service provider, DSP. What role do you see for Aerospike in supporting that journey?
Well, Globe is moving toward the Globe Group, as I indicated in the first slide. Globe as a telco is just one aspect of it. We see Aerospike as the technology that we believe can take us as a telco, as well as the other companies within the group, successful. We need to share the knowledge and experience that we've had in the past 2 years.
Understood. So my next question will be, where do you see our relationship, Aerospike and Globe relationship, potentially going from here? Of course, you brought us in for your streaming decision platform. In your opinion, what can be the other potential use cases within Globe where Aerospike real-time data platform can be a good fit?
Well, the possibilities are endless. There are many, many use cases out there and application of new technologies and architecture. Aerospike is going to be a key component of our data fabric and data mesh in the Globe Group. I just can't talk more about it, but data fabric and data mesh pretty much gives you an idea of how important it is.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Then maybe let's wrap up with this question. So you adopted Aerospike for a use case for which Aerospike did not have any prior reference, which is real-time and geospatial microservices. Could you please walk us through your thought process, like how you made that selection? Did you face any challenge, any pushback, any anxiety to bring a new vendor like Aerospike into that critical infrastructure that you do? And from that experience, what would you suggest for the other telcos and enterprises who are listening today, this talk, and thinking of potentially doing a POC, proof of concept, maybe with Aerospike?
Well, geolocation has always been a key factor in improving performance in the digital world. It has to be regionalized or localized. At our volume, we don't have the luxury of those external API calls, as it adds to latency. Having this already as part of Aerospike was actually a cherry on top, right? When we chose Aerospike, it was really more of the in-memory and disk persistence. But later on, I saw one of the videos wherein it had a geospatial solution. And geospatial being part of our roadmap had to be there. So when we talk to Aerospike guys about geospatial, can you guys do this and that? How do we actually utilize it? Especially the Philippines, wherein pretty much, there's a lot of water everywhere, right? There's just land here and there, but lots of water. So if you do a geospatial query, you're actually likely going to be including that massive water throughout the boundaries, right? But Aerospike also allowed us to be able to configure that in terms of how big of that location is going to be queried. So we created an ability to regionalize our data, an ability for us to improve performance with this geolocation capability as part of the overall algorithm, right? I advise you guys to take a look at Aerospike, look at its power of the in-memory as well as its scalability and stability. The geolocation gives you more of that flexibility, gives you more of that capability to just, know the restaurants or the reward partners within the specific area. You do a pin drop, 500-meter radius, it's going to give you all the rewards partners within a particular area, right? All those partners that you can redeem your rewards with, right? Again, to us, geolocation is a cherry on top because we are already maximizing Aerospike with the same at the same cost, right? Geolocation just happens to be on top of it, so it's just great.
Excellent. I think we will wrap it up there. Well, thank you very much for your time today and for the presentation. Thank you.
Sure, Shahid. My pleasure to give back to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.